This is Killswitch, and I'm here with Anthony. You know him from the handheld build that he's been doing for a few weeks now. Anthony, just introduce yourself to the people.
Hi, my name is Anthony Campusano. I, as he just said, I've been, you know me from the forum. I've been working on handheld Ouya build for a while now, several handheld Ouya builds for a while now. Um, but yeah, I'm happy to be here. Happy to meet you face to face.
Well, since you're not a game developer, I guess I have to go in a different direction on the
Yeah.
first question. Well, just so they know, do you are you interested in the gaming side of it?
Oh yeah, no, of course. Yeah, you're right. I'm not a developer. I think part of me wouldn't, I would love to develop a game. Not much time right there. I have some programming experience, some coding experience. Um, but no, I was drawn to Ouya like most of us probably were, through the Kickstarter. It was a very ballsy proposition on their end, you know. Here we have this micro console, $100, anyone can develop for it. Um, it hasn't gained as much traction as all of us would have liked, I think, but I'm still believing. I want to see this thing succeed.
Yep, like most of us. I mean, you can obviously we're doing the interview now.
Yeah,
We wouldn't be doing it if we didn't want to see it
exactly,
succeed. So,
exactly.
um, well, I'll ask you the typical question for the developers anyway, just
Yeah.
so they can get a little bit of your personality. What were some of your favorite games growing up?
Oh man, I had so many. Mostly platformers, a bunch of shmups, R-Type, Gradius, uh, Metroid, Super Metroid, all the Castlevanias, all the Metroidvanias later on, um, you know, Metal Gear. Played a lot of JRPGs growing up, Final Fantasies 1 through 7, 8's in there, I guess, and 9 also. Um, as we all get older, it gets a little harder to game, but those are my core influences.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's true. As we get older, we lose time, have to work, and obviously sounds like you go back to the 80s also.
Oh, I do, I do. 85 Nintendo Entertainment System.
It seems like everyone I interview were about the same age
Yeah.
range.
Yep.
Well, um,
That's
well, it's always good to have the same common interest. It seems
yeah.
to be us older gamers who are looking at this thing more.
It's funny that that's the case. Why do you think that is though? Is it just cell the popularity of cell phones and in starting this build, the biggest pushback I ever got was, why are you bothering to do this? Why can't you just get a Moga and stick it on an Android phone and call it a day?
Yeah. Oh, that's the problem. Everyone looks at it like it's a cell phone,
Yeah,
which it's not, even though there are. I'm not going to put numbers on it, but we know there's a crazy amount of cell phone ports and all that.
of course, of course.
As soon as you say Android, they think phone.
Yep.
And, well, I won't give you any pushback because, as you know, I've been tempted to actually do
Yeah.
this thing.
Oh, you're
But,
gonna you're gonna make one someday. You're just dancing around it.
oh, man. All right. We're going to ignore that. But, no, it's something like by trade, I'm a contractor. So obviously work with my hands, so it's something I would want to do.
So here I'm an architect by trade.
And maybe someday we
Just
might have a
designing.
project.
Maybe, maybe.
But like, people ask me, Eddie, can you build a cabinet? Yes. Can I build a door? Yes. And these type of things,
Yeah.
but when I was a kid, it was more about electronics. So, just like you, we're
Yeah,
from the
likewise.
same generation. Nintendo pretty much made our video game.
Oh yeah.
Of course, I'm lost of words now. Well, sooner or later, I was going to have an interview where I'm at a loss of words. So,
But there you go. It's a non-standard interview, you know. You don't have a developer in front of you. You can't go through the same
that's true.
better questions.
But for us, it was, the Nintendo. Everybody wanted to do something. You thought, hey, I could make this portable too. And then,
Yeah,
of course, Game Boy, Game Gear, everything else came.
yeah.
Of course, at that point, we were, I guess, teenagers around then,
Right
so
then. Yeah.
not as much money to say, let me try this.
No, no.
But what
Oh,
got you into that side of it?
the making the portables, you mean?
Well, modding in general.
Well, like yourself, I grew up very fascinated by electronics, but at the same time, that's not the trajectory that my life went in. But with the ubiquity of the internet, how easy it is to get information now, spend 2 hours researching this and you've kind of got a handle on what it would take to make one of these things. Whereas when, you and I were teenagers, you'd have to go to the library or get yourself a degree in engineering and figure out which controller chip, what particular thing used, and figure out how to, you'd be working in assembly there, and that's a whole nother mess. Now it's a whole different landscape. I mean, if we were kids now, I'm sure we'd be modding stuff left, right, and center. But
That's true.
um,
Yeah, you
what
got-
got me, no, yeah, yeah. What got me into it specifically though was I mean a bit, Ben Heckendorn, I think, got a lot of us into it, just showing us that hey, you can pick up an old Nintendo from somewhere and make this thing portable if you really want to. And for years, I've been wanting to make a portable system. I just you know, haven't gotten around to it. This, that, and the other. And with that first attempt with cobbling together the Xbox controller and the battery and this, that was kind of a, well, I've got a week off. Let's see where this takes me, and that's where it was going to end. But well, that and I was interested in making a Raspberry Pi portable at some point. I was going to get to that at some point, but yeah, after that Christmas build, and then the websites picked it up, and then I would say 50% of the response was positive. 50% was, why are you doing this? But out of the 50% that was positive, it's like, this thing's a monster. It's got these like controllers that are attached to it and this. So at some point I kind of told myself, I need to redeem myself and make a portable now. I need to actually make a polished product and see where this takes me. And here we are about 6 months later, or 6 months, 6 weeks later. I've got two of them. I've got the other one and this little guy.
yeah, that's the one we're going to get to because I know you had. I guess technically it's three different builds because you had the
Yeah,
Xbox one also.
the Xbox One, the one that's basically a cleaned up version of the Xbox One, which now I kind of want to do again. And then, but really, all this is leading me to, like we were saying at the beginning, our gaming time is limited these days. And I've got my PS3, I've got a PS4 that I've played for a while, and I would love to get back to. I just haven't had time. But most of my gaming time is spent on the Vita, on the 3DS, on portables, because that's the subway. It's like, can I use this on my morning commute? So there's a third build and maybe even a fourth build that I've got sketched out that are an attempt to get to something that's small enough that I could throw it in my bag and use it on my morning commute.
Hmm. All right, well, since you mentioned Ben Heck, as you know, he
Yeah.
already finished his build,
Well,
which
not all of us are Ben Hack.
that's true.
Yeah.
But I don't know about the form factor that he chose to use. I mean, we both spoke about the
Yeah.
same 7 to 10-inch screen,
Mhm.
which, as you know, it can be a little awkward.
Yeah. Though I thought you wanted to go bigger. I thought
Like,
that was.
for me, it would be something bigger, just I have big hands, so to
Mhm.
me, that screen just doesn't work. I can't even, 7-inch tablet, I can't
Oh.
even use that.
You would go bigger than 7 inches then.
Uh, if I could,
Ideally,
yeah.
what would be your number? I think we talked about it on the forum. You said maybe 10, but
For me, 10, well, I don't have to use a touch screen, so maybe I can go a little smaller. Maybe an 8
An
because I
eight.
still need the size on the sides
Gotcha.
plus the
Ah,
triggers.
yeah. Well, going back to the other one, we had discussed doing if you undermounted the triggers and worked with the screen on top and the controller under, which is kind of how that little one works. Like the triggers are under the screen.
Do you have those attached?
So my fingers actually are down here.
Huh.
They're behind.
Hmm.
So let me get the what did I do with the faceplates? So that's what you're seeing. You're not really seeing my hand back there.
Okay. Hmm. Yeah, that's definitely a configuration that might work a little better. But again, kind of adds a little bulk to it.
It does. It does.
What
Um,
what about I guess I'll have to call it the second build.
mhm.
Uh where were the triggers located on that one?
The big one, or not the big one, but the second one. That's just a split controller. So there were,
Oh, so they're still in the same spot.
yeah, you'd be holding this thing like that. This is
So,
basically a big Game Gear or a Ouya Game Gear, basically. It's
hmm,
kind of what it's looking like.
yeah, Game Gear might bring up some bad memories for
Oh,
people,
okay.
so,
Oh,
you know.
okay. I had one. It's somewhere in my mom's closet.
I had one too,
Played it like
and
twice.
exactly.
Moved on to a
Unfortunate,
Game Boy.
unfortunately, some of those things had a short lifespan.
They did. They did. They were not cheap either. I was,
Yeah,
I never heard the end of that.
you're not the only one.
To this day. It's like you bought that thing in 90 whatever and you never used it. Um, but
Okay,
yeah.
I actually had a member question based on that, really. If you were planning to use some type of, say, a PSP style case or maybe a
Mhm.
DS, which that the newest build that you've shown
Kind of looks
does
like
look
it.
like it.
Yeah.
Um, is there any other? Well, is it going to be foldable or is it just going to
Well,
be?
I think the next one that what's on my in my sketchbook right now is basically this, but I think I've worked out a way for this dimension here to scooch up to there.
Hmm,
By, so I'm gonna lose. So right now I'm using the remnants of the Ouya controller itself because it's comfortable to hold. It makes it a little easier. But this whole shaped portion is gonna go away, which just leaves me with the controller board and the buttons themselves, which I think I can scooch up and under the screen and its controller board. So I should be the screen ends somewhere there. I think I should be able to get from here to here, take off that half inch and push everything up. What that does to the bumper, kind of the reason why this is where it is because I'm trying to get my finger to get to the bumper. I was thinking about this afternoon. I don't know if I'm going to want to. I could relocate the bumper entirely to a trigger back here
hmm.
because the dimension of the actual trigger should be able to get behind the bulk of everything else. So I'd be able to use the trigger as is, but the bumper would have to be relocated to maybe back here. I haven't really thought it through yet. Um, but it's really two basic builds. It's a build with the screen with buttons below it, and then something closer to a smaller version of that where the buttons flank it, or something like what Ben came up with, where it's kind of what I like to call the Wii U layout, where it's something directly. You've got your analog and your D-pad directly on top of each other. I could also do that. So right now I'm debating whether or not I want to keep this, add buttons here and here, or try to slim this up and push it up into here.
Hmm. Okay.
But folding, I don't think I'm ever going to do folding, at least not yet.
Do you think the last build that you just showed, do you think that's going to be the final, or are you planning another one?
Oh no, I'm planning a, a few more. ultimately what I'd like to do is make a few of these, refine it, 3D model it, and then just put it on Shapeways and or offer the files on Thingiverse and just have people because the case is really the most tricky part of all this. The rest is just getting a new getting a screen, getting the right buttons, getting the right it's just wire. All it is buttons, wire, battery, an Ouya and a screen. It's that case that can be a little daunting, but what I'd like to see is that stuff be easily printable by whoever wants to make one of these, let people modify it. I'm sure people have this is my second build ever. I'm sure guys out there have a much better idea of what to do with this thing than I do. Um, so yeah, I'd like to turn it into a platform and just let people make their own portable Ouyas.
Hmm. I see. When I wasn't expecting that part because you do have some people who are interested. Because
Yeah.
I've taken questions on uh, a few battery questions have been asked, like what are you going to use? How is it going to be powered? Heating and all that.
Yeah. It's running the same way that if you look at well, I've avoided Ben's Ouya build, so it's not influenced myself. I just kind of want to finish mine before I watch his videos. But if you look at his Raspberry Pi video, it's powered in a very similar way. I'm not sure if I'm getting the battery life I'd like to get out of it. Right now, it's about 4 hours, but I haven't had a chance to really play test that fully. I've let it running I've left it running for almost 5 hours and it ran. But I'm sure once you're playing a game, that battery life is going to come down a little faster. The fan's going to run here, every once in a while. Yeah, I might try to. Right now, I'm using, I forget the exact number, but it's the typical 7.4 volt 10 battery that Ben tends to use in a lot of these. You get it on Amazon for $16. You have to buy their charger though, which is another 16, and then that's about it. And if I can sneak a couple more cells in there, then I can double it. But that's space.
Hmm. Okay, of course you don't want to make it too heavy or anything either.
No. Heavy, yeah, heavy doesn't bother me too much, but definitely,
Well, I can say heavy doesn't bother me either, because I actually hear people say that some laptops are too heavy,
yeah,
which, you're talking 2 pounds versus 3 or 4.
exactly.
But, I guess handheld game system, maybe, maybe
Maybe.
weight can,
It also depends where you're holding, where you're hand holding it and using it. My commute's maybe an hour total, so I'm not ever holding it for much longer than an hour if I ever get this really small enough.
hmm. Yeah, but we do have some men and women on the forum who do have kids. Now, this would be the perfect thing to just give to your kids so they shut up on a long ride.
That is true. That is true. Gonna have to build it a little more sturdy before a child can really. I don't know how much this is gonna handle a drop or how well this would handle the drop the way it's built right this second. But if I get it to that 3D printable place, then yeah, it would be a lot sturdier. Um,
Well, do you see yourself doing something where it can not sure how to word this. I guess let's say give it capabilities of playing the touch games, like a regular tablet.
oh, well, I don't know. I mean, the Ouya itself right now does that through the little touch pad and it's in the controller, which I would keep, but I don't know if I could turn it into a touch screen. That's probably beyond what I know how to do right now. Not, who knows? I hadn't even thought about that. Huh. Something to think about.
Yeah, that was one of the questions
Yeah.
from a forum member because I had
Conceivably, I guess you could. Maybe.
I haven't thought about it. Uh, really, this thing has been in my head, and I'm trying to
Uh,
get it out. So,
yeah.
uh, something to think about.
Hmm.
Even
Maybe.
though I'm trying not to. Um,
Well, most of the most of the touch panels that come with those little screens are USB. So maybe if you could read it as such, but I don't know if you'd have to write a driver for it because I'm not the touch panel that's in the controller itself. It's like a six-wire job. So I'm not sure if that's probably USB, but it's probably USB through some sort of protocol. Hmm. I don't
We
know.
we did have a forum member trying to crack the whole hard drive thing. He might be someone to talk to about
That's
that.
true. Yeah,
Because
that's a thought.
if it's that type of issue versus actual hardware, of course.
Yeah.
Um, do you plan on doing anything to make it more portable? Well,
But
that's
we,
not really.
yeah.
Uh, I guess changing the software and all that so that it has more of a portable. Like if you were taking your tablet somewhere,
Yeah.
basically. Do you plan on doing
Well,
anything?
I don't think the thing with the Ouya is though it's kind of the same conversation as the cell phone. It's not really a substitute for a tablet any more than it's a substitute for a cell phone. It kind of, it's almost like a little baby steam box more than it is a kind of a phone or a tablet. I don't think this thing is going to replace a tablet. It's almost what's nice about it is that it only does one thing, and it's arguably it does that. You can say it does it well or it doesn't do it well, but it does one thing. It plays games. Once you start talking about tablets, it does XBMC. It does a lot of things, sure, with the appropriate side loading and this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, the main launcher kind of works very well for games, and yeah, I have no plans to turn it into some sort of tablet substitute. I don't even know if it's worth having someone go to the work to try to do that. That thing's going to be a better tablet than a tablet.
Oh, I mean, it has the technology for it,
It does. It
obviously,
does.
but yeah, when I thought about it, I didn't think rooting or anything like that. I thought straight game console.
Exactly.
But of course, people. I'm going to guess there's maybe half of the Ouyas that are sold, maybe media boxes or whatever else.
And yeah, it works really well as a media box. I guess yeah, if you were just using it as a media box for your kids in the car, maybe. Um, yeah, full-fledged tablet. I don't know if it works so well as. The way I've been conceiving these builds, and I think I said this in the forum. I'd love to see this thing be kind of like an open source handheld, back like how the Dingoos and the Canoes were.
Hmm.
Um, it's what's nice about it too as a handheld is it kind of, if you're playing a Ouya game on your screen and you were to plug the Ouya into one of these portable builds, you could still play the exact same game. You could take the same save file and keep on going. Um, there's no question about porting a game for TV and porting the game for the portable, like you would get with the Vita and the PS4, for instance. I mean, it's nice about that is you get the remote play. You can do the same thing in both places. With this, I actually someone in the forum asked me if I wanted to try to turn this thing into a remote play kind of device, but
Hmm.
I don't even know where I was going with all that.
So basically,
Yeah,
a Wii U controller.
kind of. Someone asked if it was worth doing that, and maybe the thing that I find interesting about all these portable builds, even if it's Ouya, if it's a portable GameCube, is that they're very personal. It's what do I want this thing to be for me? And I'm sure there's the guy out there who's asking about it becoming a Wii U substitute kind of thing. For him, that's what he wants, and I hope he figures it out. But I don't think I'm going to go down that path personally.
Yeah, you do have a point there because if you even do a web search for some of the GameCube portables or whatever else, they're much more personal. It's not like someone's trying to reproduce it and sell it.
No, I mean, I guess you could probably get away with that these days with all the 3D printing out there, but it used to be such a mess to try to get anything made in the past. You'd have to get it manufactured. They wouldn't let you do it if you didn't buy 1,000 at once, this, that, and the other. No, I like the individual expression. I would love to see more of the forum members take this on as a project and just see what they come up with, because it'll be different than what I'm doing by
That's
its very nature.
true. But that might be where you're getting some of the pushback too, because you're trying to get away from oh, this thing is just a phone in a box or a
Yeah,
tablet in a box, but then you're bringing it back to that same form factor.
that's true. That is true to a certain extent. But and I think this was part of this came up in your last interview. What what makes the Ouya different though from a cell phone or any of these micro consoles? What makes it different is it when you're developing for I mean, you tell me you're the developer, but when you're developing for a cell phone, you're thinking in touch first because you can't tell whether or not this person's got a set of mogas to attach to this thing. Whereas when you're developing for the Ouya, you're thinking in games, you're thinking in analog controls, you're thinking in buttons. And for a lot of us gamers, and maybe that's why it's so attractive to us older types, because I need my buttons, especially for a platformer.
That's true. Because I'm sitting there on my tablet trying to. Because when they
Yeah,
say games coming to Ouya, if it's on Android, I put it on my tablet, try to play it almost every single time. I need a
yeah,
controller.
exactly. That's what's so nice about the Ouya is that it's great for developers because it gives them an opportunity to make a game without having to deal with the big three. I mean, I'm sure they would love to deal with the big three, but they don't always talk to everybody. So it
That's
gives you the
true.
opportunity to do that. And for the user, not only do you get to experience those games made by people who are obviously passionate about it, but what differentiates it from a cell phone is that yes, you have these controls. It's it's just a much nicer experience. And while taking it back to a portable does bring it closer to its cell phone roots, I think it's a whole different experience. It's a whole different conversation that approaches it from a different point of view. Um,
That's that's true, but it may go back to the whole marketing aspect of it, which that has nothing to do with us. That's
no,
just soon as you say Android and you don't differentiate why it's different, you're going to have people thinking cell phone.
of course. I mean, that's up to Ouya though. I mean, maybe they can hire us as marketing directors.
Well, someone needs the help. I do what I
Yeah.
can. As you can tell, that's why we're
Yeah.
here now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does. I'd like to see this thing succeed, but there are some minor, well, technically they can be major, but there are some little issues that they do need to figure out.
Yeah, no, definitely. And do you expect to see a refresh this year?
Oh man, I hate that question because it reminds me of Julie's interview where she said yearly updates,
Oh,
which
that's right. Yeah.
um if it was around the holiday time, I'd say yes. But if it's like, say they put one out now, I think you just piss off those of us who already have one,
That's true.
those who just bought the white one, the black one, all that.
That is true.
Plus, on from my end, more on the developer side, I can see why some people want more power. Plus, it also gets those people who are giving us the weak ass excuses that you give them more power, they can't give you that weak excuse, oh, the Ouya can't handle it.
Yeah,
Now, they have to step up their game and actually show it.
this is true. This is true.
That's why I think it can be a positive, but don't do it now.
Fair enough.
So, but for you on the hardware side, of course, you'd like more power too. So,
Yeah, I think it's kind of a little irrelevant. I just want more marketing, more more exposure. If I went through what half the people who saw what I was doing said, and what the other half, blah blah. But there's of everyone who's asked, "Oh, what are you up to? What are you doing?" And I show them pictures. The first question that's asked most of the time is, "What the hell's a Onuya?" And
yeah,
these aren't. Yeah, it's not people who don't game. A lot of these people are gamers, and it's like, well, okay. And then you explain it to them, like, oh yeah, I remember that thing. Whatever happened to that?
that's another issue that you see in someone will post an article. Oh, I thought that thing was dead.
Yeah, exactly.
And so they do have to get out there.
They really do.
That's why I'm hoping that some of these things that we're doing go viral. Maybe someone sees it, picks it up.
Oh
Like
yeah,
you doing your build. Ben Heck has, whatever his fan base is, and
yeah,
if they see someone else doing it, maybe they pick up on it.
yeah.
At least we'd like to hope so.
Oh yeah. I hope so. Exactly. Um, it's a great proposition that they put out there last year. Just to follow through. But they're a young company. You know, it's a hard place to
True.
be.
It's true. That's if you look at PlayStation when it first came out, how many people were
Exactly.
mocking that? They
I
mocked the
think I probably
PlayStation.
was.
So yeah, and that's a product from Sony who owns half the world basically. So, if it can happen to them, it can happen to a young company too.
That's true. That's very true.
Um, well, let's go back
Good
to
questions you have there.
back to you and your
Yeah.
builds here. Um, Looking at that, obviously you've been doing it for a while. What tips do you have for someone who, never picked up a soldering iron or never even opened a
Well,
laptop or whatever?
I haven't been doing it for too long. I will say, like these are the first two of these builds that I've ever done, but I do have years of opening up laptops and soldering a few things and a little bit of microcontroller experience. The easiest advice is just find something cheap, find something you don't mind breaking, and get in there. Get a screwdriver, take it apart, look at it, probably break it, figure out a way to fix it, break it again. And I have a ton to learn, and it's never it's never been a better time to learn this sort of stuff because it's out there. You do a Google search, and it's right there. With this particular build, so the first one, the one with the Xbox controllers attached to the sides, that one, actually, I don't even know where I put that. I dig it out, but that one, so an Xbox controller, you can run 5 volts through it. I didn't think twice about doing that to an Ouya controller, blew out the controller. Um, Turns out that it makes sense. They run on two AA batteries. I don't know why in the hell I thought I could pump 5 volts through it. Lucky for me, the thing kind of came back to life the next day, but I then realized I needed a voltage regulator, didn't know what that was really to begin with. So did some Google searching. By the end of the week, I had the parts to put together a little voltage regulator. It's the best advice I can give is people need to, or the hardest thing to learn is how to search correctly. The doing isn't that difficult. The doing is just having the willingness to take something apart. But it's when you're looking for answers is how to find them. That's the hardest thing, I think, especially if it's not your discipline. Like this isn't my discipline at all.
Because you actually reminded me of how I actually got started on building computers when I was 8 years old when I started that. And my mother, yeah, the look on her face when I opened that computer. But I did go through with it, look through it, and at the time it was just I think the first thing I did was changing a hard drive. And back then, a hard drive was like $300-400, whatever it
Yeah,
was. So, yeah, look on her face when I pulled that open. But it does take opening, putting it in, you know, even if you're just opening, disassemble, put it back together.
exactly.
As long as it still works, of course.
Yeah. Well, it usually doesn't but you figure out why it doesn't. I spent a good part of yesterday figuring out why something wasn't working, and then once you do, it's a great feeling.
Yeah, that's true, because when I was 8 years old, I thought I was the man. I mean,
Well, I think we all, when we're 8, we all do.
but I even started repairing computers by the time I was maybe 11.
Oh, nice.
So, to
I'm,
me, it
I'm,
would be going back to what I know, technically.
it's funny. I'm coming from the opposite. I was a bit of a luddite growing up. I loved games. I had games, but I didn't have my first real PC till I was 23, till I could buy it myself. But and in however many years it's been since that, I've become quite technically adept.
Hey, well, always have to start somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
For me, I was lucky. My parents wanted me to be a scientist, doctor, whatever. My mother's a nurse. My father was a doctor. So, pretty much that's what they wanted. So,
Uh,
but yeah, it doesn't take much. Pick up a soldering iron, test it out. Like you said, you can look it up
uh
online.
And yeah, you can get a really cheap soldering iron. My first soldering iron was probably $10. It was horrible, but it was enough to put some simple things together. Um, it's just a matter of doing. I mean, same. We're always learning something. Everyone's always learning something new. Um,
Well, you'd like to hope so, anyway.
yeah, we exactly. You'd like to hope so. Ideally, everyone's learning something new.
Right. Um. Well, actually, I'm out of any member questions.
All right.
Let's see. Do you Well, where do you? So basically, this whole thing is going to end up being what you take on the subway or wherever you may go, right?
Basically, if I'm
So
really gonna use the Ouya, that's gonna have to be the way it gets used, at least for for my day to day. I want to use it more. Right now, it's become an emulator machine for me. I mean, I've played some games. I like Towerfall. Meltdown's a lot of fun, but I've mostly been using it for emulators and working through the back catalog that goes back to like the late 80s probably.
yeah, that's another big market that they have, but unfortunately, you can't really advertise to them.
No, of course not. That's something you really can't advertise at all. Um, but it's they can't advertise, but the rest of us can. That
That's
particular aspect of it.
that's true, but I've actually never touched an emulator. For me, pretty much
Well, what are your favorite games on the Ouya?
had asked that question.
I did. Well, okay, not favorite, because that's
Let's
not good as a host. But what are some of your?
Yeah, that would look a little biased, but
Yeah, exactly.
we all have favorites. You can't deny that.
Yeah.
I've always been an RPG fan. Hopefully, by the end of the year, plan to start working on mine. Uh, like Final Fantasy, I think I've played every one up to, I believe, 10. Once they started looking like movies, I lost
Yeah.
interest.
10, I tried 10. I couldn't get through it. Actually, one of my favorite RPGs is Xenogears. Speaking of old SquareSoft, did you ever get around to playing that years ago?
I remember it, but I'm not
Oh,
sure
it's a
if I
good
played it.
RPG.
Problem is, Square kind of went sideways instead of moving forward.
Yeah,
That's the way I see it.
no, I agree.
Because Bravely Default goes in a different direction. That's one I want to try.
Yeah, that's definitely on my radar.
Um,
Um,
Other games, Meltdown, because obviously, who doesn't like shooting things? Uh, Pocket RPG is another. I mean, I could run off a whole list of games, but
yeah.
yeah, those are my style of game. Mostly RPGs, adventure, and of course the random shooter like Meltdown, Neon Shadow, an FPS game if there was one that was finished, unlike some of the ones that we have now. I mean, but that's also a little pet peeve, the unfinished games. And I'm sure that's why some
Problems
people
to
go
deal
back,
with.
you know, that's why I'm sure people go back to emulators and all that. Because
Yeah.
at least you know you're getting a full game, the full experience. You don't have to worry about if you're going to like start running and then the game stops. And you
Exactly.
know, unfortunately, people aren't finishing their games, which kind of another issue that Ouya has, but that's not their problem.
No, that's developers.
See, that's what like right now I'm working on an adventure game, somewhat like Zelda. I haven't really said much about it, but if you look at my signature, I do have two projects listed there. No link or anything. So that's one that I'm working on, and I'm also working on uh, jeez, now I can't even think of the term. The
uh,
multiplayer online.
MOBAs.
Yes,
Yeah.
man, first time I keep losing my words here.
It's all right.
But those are two that I'm working on. I won't call them smaller games. The adventure is still going to be a full size game. The MOBA is going to be smaller because obviously it's just one side to the
Yeah.
other side. But it's going to be something that hopefully will take advantage of online multiplayer, which is something that the Ouya lacks. I mean, couch games are
True.
great,
Yeah.
but what if you don't have friends? You know?
RPGs. This is how I grew up.
Yeah, that's why you end up playing RPGs. You end up
Yeah.
you get a new team member, new friend. There you go.
Yeah. Actually, speaking of soldering irons, I had hoped to have one of these turn on at the end of the interview, and I realized that one of the wires popped out. So we're going to solder it back right now.
All right. Think you'd be able to get that on
All right, there it
camera?
is. I think that's all right.
Not going to be able to get actually doing that on camera, are you?
No, I don't think so. Because, oh, come on, don't break. Worst time to pop out. There we go.
All right. Well, since members have asked, maybe it's something that
Yeah.
you can do a video at some point if you have a
I think
camera.
so. Well, what I'd like to do further down the road, see, these first two builds are, I have a bunch of ideas in the sketchbook. I've never done this before, so they're kind of just tests of everything. Once these get a little more polished, I actually want to set up a time lapse, maybe for the third one, if not the fourth one, which will probably be my last one for a while, of just the whole process. Just like set up the camera, do my work, and just edit it out at the very end, and just speed it all up, so that users can really get us. There we go. That's turned on. People can get a sense of what goes on in building one of these, which they're not that difficult. It's just a matter of following through.
Before this interview, I thought you were doing this for years. See, I had
No,
no
I
clue.
that big one. That's the first one. That one with the Xbox controllers. That's my first attempt at doing anything like this. I mean, I've always wanted to, but never got around to it.
So, not only does Ouya let you make your first game, you can also make your first console.
Exactly.
I wonder if they even know what they have with this little box.
I don't think they do. I really don't think they do. I think they have an idea of what they have with it or what they want it to be, but I don't think they really have a sense of the enthusiasm behind it. Oh, wait, that's right. That's disconnected. The enthusiasm behind it from people, I don't think they really get just how what's the right word for it? What the opportunity they're presenting people with.
Well, they did want openness, which
Yeah.
it somewhat have. We're not going to say it's completely open, but
Yeah.
it does allow you to do what you're doing. We have
Yeah.
another forum member who's doing different mods to his Ouyas. He has the
Yeah.
black one, so he uses the metal one for putting on an antenna. Which,
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I have to get test numbers from him on improved performance on that.
Hmm.
Because that might be something for another simple thing a member can do. You know,
Yeah.
drill a hole, add two wires, but again, you have to know how to solder.
It was just the guy who he's using one of the laptop antennas, right, with the U.FL connector or whatever they're
Yeah,
called. Yeah.
yeah. I think it was yesterday morning. Basically, drilled the hole, put the thing in. He's just waiting on a part to come on a slow boat from China. So,
It happens.
yeah, I was waiting 2 weeks for thumbsticks. So,
Yep.
which, if you looked at the forum, you saw I just put them
I
on
did. I saw
yesterday.
your yeah.
So, yeah, they might have more than what they bargained for with this thing.
I think
And
they do.
hopefully it will survive. It won't end up like the many others. I mean, look at Saturn, the Jaguar, just so many others.
The Jaguar. Wow. Forgot all about the Jaguar. It's funny because I wanted one of those bad when they first came out. Didn't get one. 'Cause
I mean,
that was dead in the water.
and that's what people thought this would be, but because you have
Yeah.
the internet, you know, there were people willing to give it a chance. Oh,
And the price point doesn't help. It doesn't hurt, rather. It helps. It doesn't hurt.
that's true. Because I can tell you now, I know at least one forum member who's actually not around for the console itself. Maybe two or three others. They may be there for what it represents versus,
Huh.
the games or whatever else.
Yeah.
And yeah, they definitely have something here, and I hope they build on it and don't let it just fall apart.
I hope so. That's where. That's what they need to do to build on this.
Especially since all these others are just Google boxes. They're not full consoles.
No.
Though you keep hearing, oh, you can go get a Mojo and it'll look better or whatever
Yeah.
just because of Tegra 4. But you can't play the games. If you can't play the games, what's the point?
Stop playing.
So, well,
Well.
I'm out of questions for you. If there's anything you'd like to add,
All right.
now's your time. You can
No.
plug
I
away.
think I think I'm good. I think just keep following on the forum. I'll keep posting, and we'll see how far I go with this, which seems pretty far at this point. Like I've got some plans to keep playing, so we'll see where we are.
Right, and I'm sure the members of the forum will be waiting. All right, that was
Yep.
that was Anthony, also known as Eucrow on the forums. He's been building a Ouya handheld for a few weeks now, as you've seen, and now you get to see some of the other builds that he's been working on. You can see him on ouyaforum.com, and we now return you to whatever it is you're doing this Sunday.
Yeah. All right. It's nice talking to you.